I used to work at the Commission as a desk officer. I worked for desk officer for the Åland Islands in Finland, the smallest RDP. And then I also was a maternity leave replacement for mainland Finland, as well as a replacement for Sweden for a while. So I've worked with the 3 RDPs for a couple of years when I was a contract agent at the Commission. So I have some insight on how the daily work of a desk officer goes. So the MAs know all that, when you send the evaluation report on SFC to the Commission, I think now there comes an automated message saying this has been received, thank you. Previously it used to be a letter that was sent by hand. Then comes the question, then what? The MA has fulfilled their requirement, they have sent it, but it has to be used somehow. And the Commission, typically they have checklists on seeing whether the legal elements are present, and then also some substance checking. But in the ex post evaluation, there are not very many legal requirements. There is something in the 1698, but for example, for the annual report, there is a required structure, required content, and if some of it is not present, it bounces back. But the ex post evaluation is a bit different. But we have been asked by the Commission to come up with some kind of quality assessment for the reports, so as to actually get some kind of sense of the quality of the reports and to draw attention to the requirement of quality, as well as to give a kind of structured way for the desk officers to look at the reports, because otherwise there will be 50 different ways of looking at the reports. But there are some challenges. One of them is that the standard kind of quality assessment grid doesn't work because the Commission is not the customer. The main customer is the MA, who has to they are the one who has contracted the evaluator. They have to check that the report is clear, that the report responds to the terms of reference and everything. So in a sense, the MA is very strongly encouraged also in our ex post evaluation guidelines to use quality assessment on their part. So the Commission as such will not be able to send it back to the evaluator and say, do something, because they are not the customer. So in that sense, we have to look at a bit more systemic issues and go a bit beyond the standard quality assessment. But another challenge we have is the link to the ex post evaluation summary, which contains the substance. So there has to be some substance, but there has to be, the main focus is on the quality of the report. I will not go into very much details about what it contains because it's still under discussion. But basically, this is the main idea, that you find the red thread of the evaluation, that what the evaluator concluded and recommended, and how the evaluator came to the conclusion, and what the evaluator based their conclusions on. So the main issues that this quality assessment tool would look at is the issues which are under the control of the MA, more systemic issues, and also the way that whether what is said in the report is logical, whether it's founded on the data, and whether the data was reliable. So basically whether the foundations of the recommendations are solid and whether the chain works. That's the main idea, because let's say me as a reader, I would have to be able to trust that the conclusions are okay. And in that sense, some of the elements that we have thought of including are, for example, the use of CMEF. Some of the items are compulsory, for example, the common indicators and the common evaluation questions. But then there's also the issue of tailoring the evaluation to suit the RDP in question, so that whether it represents the RDP, what we are looking at, as well as the robustness of the methods and data. But here a caveat, it doesn't have to be quantitative. As we have heard now, you can do robust evaluation using other methods as well. And the recommendation is mixed methods, because the quantitative methods themselves, they don't tell you necessarily how or why, they tell you how much. But you have to go beyond that. And yes, to have the credible findings leading to valid conclusions and recommendations. So as to look at the, in a way, like if you were doing a research project or a PhD study, this is what your supervisor would look. It's like, does it hold? So yes, and then also there's this issue about systemic issues. There are some issues which are carrying over from last programming period to the current one. For example, data availability, data validity, data access, methods, communication, like basic things which are behind the evaluation, but without which you cannot do a proper evaluation. So these are the issues that the MA should then focus on. And if there are such things, they could be highlighted. Okay.